Welcome, everyone to the platform. We will give everyone a few moments to get in the space with us. Welcome to the platform. We're excited about our guest tonight. Listen, I absolutely adore this young lady. She is, listen, people don't say this anymore, but she's the bomb.com. Okay, don't judge me. Okay, yeah, I use that. Okay, the bomb.com, right? Probably just aged myself. But again, welcome everyone to the platform. Listen, here we like to just jump right on in. We like to get started right away because we don't want to waste any time, especially when we have all these amazing people coming through. And when I tell you, this is a super amazing guest that we have with us tonight. Her name is Ayeisha Mathis, right? And I'm just going to quickly share a little bit about her before she jumps on in and introduces herself and starts to tell you some wonderful things about her and what she is doing. Mathis is the first recipient of the prestigious Berklee College of Music Presidential Scholarship, graduating in 2009 with dual degrees in music production and engineering and music business slash management. Mathis has made the Berklee community proud. Listen, she is a teacher, all right? I love education, all right? Okay. She's a teacher, a preacher, and youth development leader, right? And she is a native of Boston. And there's so much more that I could share with you about her. But the point of having her here is for her to talk to you and share with you a bit about who she is, all the amazing things that she is doing. So we're going to jump right on in. Ayeisha, welcome to the platform. How are you doing tonight? Let us
I'm
know.
well. I'm well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited
Oh,
to
no.
be here.
Oh, I'm excited that you are here. All right, so let's just jump right on in. All right. Um, Tell us who Ayeisha Mathis is. Who is
That's an
Ayeisha?
interesting question. I feel like I'm multifaceted, but if I can sum myself up, I would say I'm a woman of God first,
Hmm.
a lover of people, an educator, and a musician. I would say, yeah. That would sum me up.
Awesome. Okay, all right. So let's talk about this thing a little bit. So, you work in the music field. Um, Tell us when you first knew you had a gift or a talent and what that moment was like for you when you discovered that.
Um, I know I was in elementary school. I was really young. And my godmother and my godbrother were the musicians at our church at the time. This was back in old school New Life days. And so I had these, I used to play, like, I explored all instruments before I settled on drums. And so I had these like electric drumsticks I brought to church. And I was sitting on the front row and I was like going in. My godbrother was like, "You seem serious. So let's do something about this." And so he and my godmother would just bring me to the church and we would just practice things like that. But also before, I can't say this is when I was aware, but before that, my uncle was the drummer at the church like when I was born. So I literally was a baby sitting on his lap while he played at church. But like music, especially drummers, but musicians and preachers are like just all in the family. So I feel like it might just be in the DNA for real.
Got you. So you grew up in this thing.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely,
That's what's up.
definitely.
She said it's in the DNA. Okay, cool. All right. So name two of your favorite artists and why.
Ooh,
Uh-huh.
that's tough.
Yeah, I know, I know. Take your time, because I know that's not always an easy question.
No, not at all. So you're asking artists and musicians.
Ooh, both. Let's just go
Okay.
ahead and shake it up. Both.
Okay, so the first one that comes to mind, recently late Aaron Spears.
Oh my goodness.
Because, and I say Aaron, he's a drummer. He was a
Yes.
drummer. He just passed away.
Mhm.
Um, he he was someone that impacted the culture.
Yes.
So he was a drummer, he was a musician, he was also in the group Gideon Band. Um, he impacted literally cross sectors, the church culture, the secular culture, musicians. Like he really impacted people, and that's something I definitely desire to do. The second person, I would maybe Quincy Jones, because he has had such an impact on music that like still resonates in my opinion today. As a producer, as a composer, as a musician, as just a person. Um, yeah, I would say those two. Those are the first two that came to mind.
That's what's up. Wow, when you mentioned Aaron, I was like, "Whew,
Mm,
it's been a bit of a time for me, I would say, the last couple of days. I got an opportunity to watch, the service online. It was
mhm,
absolutely beautiful, and phew, it shook a lot of people. It
mhm,
definitely, there was a lot going on in the music and entertainment space when it came to Aaron. A lot of people made it out um, to the actual service, to support the family, and
mhm,
I was hit in such a way by it. To be honest with you, I went back into one of my older emails just to kind of look at some of the engagement between Aaron and I. He was doing
mhm,
some beats, and I was writing at the time, and we were just conversing about some of those things. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna miss him, and condolences to the family. We're
mhm,
praying for your strength and the peace of God
definitely.
to be with you. Okay, awesome. I definitely agree with the ones that you just shared. Let me ask this question. What would you say is the hardest and the easiest thing about your job or your occupation as a professor at Berkeley?
Okay. Ooh, these questions are good. I would say the answer is the same for both. Um, Passion and compassion. It's the easiest thing because it's a part of who I am, but it's the hardest because I can't want something more for someone than they want for themselves.
Mm,
And so as these young people are growing, I have to allow them that space. Like, because I come from the youth development background. So to go into higher education, I've had to figure out how to have that line of demarcation, that separation. Because I would literally be like, no, you gotta do this. You have to, go to class, you have to do this, you have to, I would really be on them just because of my passion and compassion, or overextending myself. I've had to learn that definitely in this it's a different atmosphere, a different role, a different institution. It's completely different than youth development, but there are some crossovers.
mm. You are definitely what I would call, I wouldn't even say like some people say hidden gems, within the community. I
Mm,
wouldn't say that you are hidden, but I would say that you are definitely someone who, I've watched from afar. And although we don't
mm,
get an opportunity to, converse all the time, I'm always like on the inside of myself, I'm like, she's doing it, and she's doing it the right
thank
way.
you.
She's doing
Thank
it the right
you.
way. I can tell that you're, very integral, and that you're methodical, and you really uh, put your entire self into something because you strive for excellence, right?
Hmm.
And that's wonderful, especially if you can tell, if you can tell that, and you don't even like, you're not around a person all the time, but you're like, yeah, I see the light of God around them.
Mm,
I see that they are thinking ahead, about in regards to purpose and helping others. You're a very selfless individual,
mm,
right? And we can see
thank you.
that based on how you move and how you engage with people, and it's just beautiful to witness, and I can't
Thank
wait
you.
to see all of the great things that you are going to be, doing in the near future. So, what or who inspires you and why?
Mm, my students, right? At this phase in my life, my students, because I have to show up, or I want to show up as my best self because they're the future of all sectors of life, realistically. And so they're worth the investment. They're worth all of that I have so that they can go and plant seeds and grow harvest wherever they go, so that we just have a better possibility for our future, to be honest. So I would definitely, like, on my worst days, the one thing that could get me out of a funk is teaching, or at least being with my students, especially my mentees, for sure.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure they
Thank you.
absolutely love you, honey, okay?
I think so. I think I'm the favorite professor. I think so.
Yeah, I would say so. If you were my professor, I'd probably be calling, asking, you like, child, you will see me at the school, okay? These see me during office hours, right? Because like you're very inspiring and just very
Oh, thank
inviting.
you.
So I'm sure they absolutely love you. Okay, here's another question for you. Um, what is some advice that you could give to musicians who grew up playing in the church, right?
Mm.
But they are now playing and touring with mainstream artists, and they don't really, or they didn't keep their connection or relationship with the Father God. What advice
Mm.
give to those individuals who are struggling, right? It comes across their mind, but they're so inundated with just moving all the time and working. What advice could you give them?
I would say, you said musicians who are struggling. I would say connections. Your
Mm,
connections points are important because, for example, I just got a new phone today, right? My phone was just acting up,
yeah.
and the battery ended up dying. Because it was doing its purpose, and the capacity that it had emptied. So in order for it to be filled back up, it needs to be connected to a source, right? The power source. Um, at some point, you're gonna hit a limit, whether it's energy, whether it's mental capacity, whatever it is. So you being connected to the source. John 15 says the true vine, right? Because there are a lot of different vines. I ain't here to preach, but there's a lot of different vines. being connected to the true vine is going to help you to bear fruit. It's going to help you to have to be filled back up. But also your horizontal connections are also important, because you don't want relationships that um are liabilities or deplete you. You want relationships that are reciprocal, number one, and also relationships that are like an asset to you, really. So if someone's not, my aunt always told me this, if someone's not adding to you, then they're taking from you. It's like an accountant principle, right? Like there's a credit and a debit. It has to balance the book out. So those are important things to consider in your relationships, period, but especially your relationship with God. In order for you, especially if you're struggling to kind of hold on and be hopeful, He is hope. Christ is hope, So I think that's what I would say, because it isn't easy. And even us who were not struggling in our faith, it's not always easy for us. So let alone trying to go through life without hope, without the hope, it's harder, in my opinion and from my experience.
That part. That's good.
Thank
That's
you.
good. Yeah, I mean, because as I've toured with,
Hmm.
mainstream artists. I was there in the sense of, when you're working and you're working consistently and you're just going and there's so much, happening, you can get distracted, right?
Hmm.
And we never want to get, to that place where we're not communing with God, where we're not in, proper fellowship and alignment. And then we're just pulled away by the world and everything that comes with it, right? Because
Hmm.
it can make you feel like, everything's all good because you're alive, you're working, but there's some sort of depletion that begins to happen from a spiritual standpoint. So I
Hmm.
appreciate you providing that advice, and I hope that would be helpful to someone who's listening. All right, let's jump into. Oh, I love this question. All right.
Uh-oh.
Share something with us. Share something with the viewers that most people don't know about Ayeisha. They don't know this about you, or they would be
Mm.
surprised about this. Like if you have like some sort of hidden talent, maybe you own an island, you got married,
Jesus.
secretly.
Whew. Something people don't know. I'm like, which part do I want to share? I'm a certified spin instructor.
Shut your face. Are you serious?
I am. I am. Now I've been
Wow.
slacking. I'm not gonna lie. Over the last year, I need to get back on the bike. Yeah, my big brother, my mentor, my godfather. It depends on the day, whatever what we call him. But Chris Sumner, he talked
Ah,
me into it. That's
wow.
like he's a cyclist. He is so adamant. So he was like, come on, sis, like you could do it. Because I was going to his classes. I was doing spin like 3-4 times a week. So I just ended up becoming certified. I haven't taught any
Wow.
classes. We were like gearing up for that, and then life
Yeah.
happened. But yeah, I'm a
Mhm.
certified spin instructor. At
Well,
least
look at
until
here.
January when I have to renew it. For the last 2 years I've been.
Well, look at here, look at here. Now, is that going to surprise some of the people that know you that did not know that?
I think so. Because I don't like to sweat. No.
That's funny. Okay, all right. Let's keep this moving. Okay. Um, the best compliment you have ever received.
Mm, the best
Hmm.
compliment. It's a compliment, but it also makes me sad. I get a lot. I've never met a Christian like you. And not in church settings, in like secular settings and different things like that. Um, it means just seeing the light and salt and all that stuff. but I shouldn't be the first person that they see living a life that they're drawn to as a Christian. But I do think that because I do strive to be an example, I do strive. I'm not perfect, but I strive to be that light in darkness and in whatever sphere of influence I'm in. I do strive to emulate and bear the image of Christ, not overbearing at all, but in a practical and relevant way. So I think for someone to see that, and that is like my goal, to like glorify God in that way, I think that I would say that's one of the probably biggest compliments.
Yeah, in my opinion, um, I believe a part of that has to do with, you know, your love not only for God first, but for people, and really
Mhm,
wanting to make sure that they come into relationship with God. Right? Because a
mhm,
lot of people, they begin to minister and witness to people from a standpoint of, you know, it's really more so about what they know, right? What they've learned. And if you listen closely enough, it's like, wait a minute, are you really trying to, tell this person about Christ, all the wonderful things about Christ, and draw them, so that they'll come into the kingdom? Is this really about salvation, or is this really about, what you learn
mhm,
in seminary? Right? Are you really concerned
right.
about this person, giving their lives to God, or do you just like to hear yourself talk? Right? And so,
Mm,
when you're teaching and when you're engaging with people, it's not hard to see that, like, you love
mm,
God first, and you want to make sure that people come into relationship with God, not someone who is just noted as, a famous preacher, or to just be a part of a church community. No, you want people to really know the Father. And the other thing too is, you know, you understand, one plants, one waters,
mhm,
God gives the increase, right? And
mhm,
I'm sharing
mhm,
from my observation of engaging with you, being a part of your amazing Bible study. It's like you're not trying to
mm,
force something, that does not need to be forced, right? You're like,
yeah.
hey, this is what God gave me to share. I'm gonna share it and keep moving. I'm not gonna add nothing to it. This is what He told me to say.
Mhm,
I'm going to deliver it, and I'm gonna step back, right? And you do have some individuals where they feel like they're the ones that have to do it all. I have to plant, I gotta water, and they think they're the ones that's supposed to give the increase, right? So they just sometimes
mm-mm.
doing too much.
Yeah, that's burnout. We're not doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And so you just have that way about you where, you can tell um that you're really in a place where it's like, God, I understand that you are working through me as your
Mm,
vessel, and I'm submitted to you. This is not about, me being fancy and I got all this education and I'm about to just show the people what I know. You really care about people. And so
mhm,
I can go on and on about that. Of course, you already know that that's just something that I love about you, but let's
thank
continue with
you.
some of these questions.
Okay.
What do you think is something that people seem to misunderstand about you, if at all?
That's a good one because I used to get like, "Oh, she thinks she's all that," or like, "I'm
Ah,
stuck up," and all
really?
that. Yeah,
You don't even
even to a
give
point a little bit.
that?
It's because I'm an introvert and I don't like social spaces. Sometimes it makes me anxious. Yeah, I don't like big crowds. I don't like concerts. Um, so it could come off a way, but I really like social spaces. Drain me, some of them. So I
Mm,
need to recharge. I have a social battery that
mm.
gets drained, so I need to recharge. So it's not like, oh, I'm not trying to speak, or I'm like not trying to be social, but it like social spaces like really impact me. So
Right.
I stay away from them. Or like, for example, I spoke at a panel. There was like 100 and something people in the room, and I sat in the corner. I've been talking. It was a Wednesday. Wednesdays are my long days. I was
Mhm.
talking from 11 to 6 p.m. back to back. So I just needed to decompress for a second. But that
Right.
could come off like, oh, she don't want to, oh, she don't want to. And it's not that I love people and I love meeting new people, but sometimes I just need to decompress and kind of get my social battery back up.
That's what's up because you got to protect your peace, right? We see
Oh
what happens.
yeah.
We see what happens to people, when they don't, and then you start complaining, and it's like, look, we have to be accountable for our peace, right? It's
Yeah.
it's not up to the next person. We literally have to
Mhm.
say, hey, not today, I'm not feeling it. Or you got to gauge where you are. You know that, hey, if I make the decision to go out to this place or that place, I'm going to be all over the place. It's just not going to be a good thing.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to be drained. And, if you got something that, you're committed to the next day and you need all that, energy and peace to just get through work, right? Then you got to do what you
Mhm.
got to do. So I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. If you could turn back the hands of time,
Mm.
talk to your 18-year-old self.
Ooh, you gotta go to 18?
Yeah,
Okay.
of
18 was
course.
traumatic, honey. Woo!
If you could go back
Okay.
and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I would say learn vulnerability. I definitely would say learn how to be vulnerable. Um, because trying to learn that in your 30s is difficult. But I would say learn vulnerability, learn how to love out loud, and extend more grace.
Ooh,
Mhm.
why extend more grace?
Because in certain relationships, so for example, at 3 weeks before my 18th birthday, my
Mhm.
best friend and boyfriend was murdered.
Oh, wow.
However, that's why I was like, ooh, 18 was rough. At the time, we had a fight and I was being stubborn. So we weren't speaking because of me. I wouldn't talk to him because I was mad, right? It was something stupid. But it was because I wanted more for him than I was seeing manifest. Like he wasn't like, he was following me everywhere. I was going to school, he was meeting me at school. I'm like, you didn't go to school today? So that I think that was like the essence of the fight. So it was silly but passionate because I wanted more. And so extending grace to know like, okay, maybe he was going through something. Number one, um, I was stubborn, but a lot of it had to do with my lack of learning vulnerability, in which I've learned in my 30s from therapy, which
Wow.
has since then affected a lot of my relationships throughout life and even since then. A lack of vulnerability because I don't like to take risks. I'm a calculated person.
Yeah.
The mean has to equal the end. Like I've learned to take more risk, but I've learned that vulnerability is the risk.
Yeah.
So that's what I
That's
would say to 18-year-old Ish. Yeah.
wow. That's good. I gotta sit with that for a second because,
Yeah.
I'm trying to stick to the plan, to the agenda, right? But you start hitting on some things.
Nah, go
Um,
ahead, sis. Go ahead. I got time, space, and opportunity.
and I was like, hold up, we might have to come back and do a whole, segment around that. My occupational background is in the behavioral and mental health field. I'm a mental
Mhm.
health coach, a youth mental health coach as well. And you said something about like counseling. Every now and again we get into this conversation about you need deliverance and counseling, you need deliverance and therapy. And I just
Mhm.
want us to come back another day and just kind of really dig in
Anytime.
that. I really want to get into that piece. Oh my God, that's woo. Okay, all right. Let's keep it rolling. All right, what's our next question here? Okay, let's jump into some things. Actually, it's a good segue into the ministry piece. What would
Okay.
you say is the best and the hardest thing about ministry?
A lot of hard things. Um, I'll start with the best. The best thing is seeing transformation in people's lives. Seeing someone who may have been hopeless, but now is hopeful or optimistic. Seeing someone learn how to pray, like, oh, I don't pray out loud, and now they're like going in and leading prayers. Just seeing transformation, not just change, because if you change, you might can change back, but that transformation is a series. That's what the word. I'm a word person. Transformation is a series of changes where something looks completely different than what it was. So seeing people go through that, and then share it with others, that means a lot, in ministry. The hard part is leading, I would say right now, because my uncle always says, like, you have to lead even when no one's following. And if God called you to lead, he didn't say it's gonna be this many people. He may tell some people that. Um, but even if it's one person, or if, like, I remember one Bible study, I just was having a week and nobody got on, like, on time. Usually there's people in the waiting room, and no one was on, and I was just already battling just ministry wise, like, God, like, are you sure? And so I was like, okay, if no one's on by 8:15, I'm logging off. And God was like, no, you're not. You're gonna stay till 9 p.m. because that's the assignment. So you be faithful in this. And I was like, all right. And then people ended up joining. But leading is hard because it's a risk. And I'm still learning this vulnerability thing, and that's a part of it. You have to take a risk, and you don't know the outcome. I like knowing outcomes. I struggle when I can't predict and I can't do the outcome, but in a sense, I do know the outcome because he has plans for me to prosper. He doesn't have plans to harm me. So the process, even though it might be stressful, I have to tell myself, like, the outcome is for me to prosper. The outcome is for my good. Like, I have to tell myself that. But it's hard. The process is hard.
Mm. I'm gonna throw a question in here that I didn't necessarily plan to ask.
Mhm.
What was that one encounter or that one event or moment in your journey where, well, with God, right? Where you said to yourself, whether within yourself or outward verbally, where you said to yourself, after that, there's no turning back. After that,
Mm.
there's no turning back. Was it some sort of spiritual encounter? I know some people speak about angels, and some people, speak about hearing God in a way they never heard him before. But what did that look like for you?
It's interesting because I always was trying to turn back, no lie. But so I had a few of these moments. I think the first one that comes to mind is the day I led my brother to Christ. Um, because that's something I have been praying for a long time. Um, he struggled with alcoholism and mental health, different things, and randomly called me to go to church one day. And I was fasting, I was praying, God, save my siblings, heal them, deliver them, God, you know. And he came to church, and this just the Holy Spirit just was he cried from. He's not like this, he wasn't this like soft guy. So it was like weird. And so he was like crying the whole time. And then during, the ministry portion, it was a call to Christ, and he went up. And I was like, where are you going? And so my uncle, my pastor at the time, was like, come lead your brother to Christ. And so to see God, see that answer prayer, prayer answered manifest, that was like, all right, God, okay. And I just wanted to see that in every area of life, see that with more people, um, pray for other things, continue to seek God and pray because it was an answer prayer.
That is beautiful. That is
Thank
I
you.
get like that when I see, um, young people give their lives to
Mhm.
Christ. Like, I'm a mess. Like, I've been a
Yes,
teen
me too.
I mean a whole mess. I've been a teen director, youth director for many years. I work, in the space of youth development. And let me tell you, and I didn't even know that about myself until one day I was in church, and this was years ago. And the young people started coming, they were going up to the altar, and just something just came over me. I said, "What is this, Jesus?" I was like,
Yeah, that's me.
and listen, and ever since then, I was like, "Is this gonna happen time, Jesus? Every time I'm just gonna be a hot mess when the young people go."
Mhm.
You said that's you as well.
That is me, yeah, and it's interesting because I've won more souls, as the church lingo, and discipled more young people outside of the 4 walls. I was yeah, they were like, "What you do this weekend?" I was like they was like, "I know you was turning up," and I'm like, "No, I wasn't doing that. I went to church. It was great. It was a turn up." They're like, "What?" So then they started seeing, like, differences, and that's when "I've never met a Christian like you." So then they were like, "How do you have hope?" Or even they'll ask me about situations, and I'll share hope, which is Christ, and I was like, "I want that." And I was like, "Well, you can receive it. You just have to receive," so that conversational witnessing evangelism, it definitely hits. And then to see the young people give their lot, yeah, that's I'm a mess.
Oh, well, you're gonna be a mess a whole lot because a lot of people, and I know you may
Amen.
already know this, but I just have to say it. Like, you are going to be the reason why a lot of young people give their lives to Christ.
Mm,
You
amen.
really are, because they need to, be able to encounter someone like you, in regards to, like, how you handle people. How we handle people
Mm,
matters, right?
mm-hmm,
And so
absolutely.
because of your temperament, how you handle people, how you engage with people, how you communicate with people, um, it's already making, an impact on people. But there's so much more that we're gonna see, come from you in regards to you engaging with the young people and them giving their lives. There's gonna be more that's said. I'm not supposed to be moving into this space, but okay, Holy Spirit. There's gonna
Mm,
be so much
mm,
more that's said. Put it this way, there are gonna be people that encounter you, that are gonna give their lives to Christ, and you may not even hear from them, right? They might
mm,
meet you in passing, right? And they may not even live in the same city, state, or town, and they're somewhere else. They done moved to, Texas or California, and they're going to be talking to someone about you. Your
mm.
name is going to come up
Yes, Lord.
as, "Hey, I was in Boston. There was this young lady. She was talking about God and thus and so." And I just think that that's so beautiful, because we don't always get the opportunity to hear back from those that we've made an impact on. But you're
Mhm.
definitely one of those people. I thank God. I thank God for that.
Amen.
Here's another question in regards to, um, let's see, is this tied into our ministry piece here? Yeah, I would say so. So, for individuals who are gifted and talented in the church, right? In the brick and mortar, they're gifted, they're talented, and so they get the spotlight, if you will. They get the mic, given to them, but no discipleship, right?
Mm. Ooh.
What
Mm,
would you
mm, mm.
say? not only to that talented slash gifted individual in that situation, but what would you also say to leaders in ministry who are, putting the focus on that, and they're not focusing on making sure that this person is discipled?
That is a great question. I would say to both of them, effectiveness, because without being discipled, how are you truly effective? And so for leaders, would you put a toddler, you know, over your finance committee? No. I mean, you might, but that's crazy. But right? Like you wouldn't naturally put a babe in prominent roles that are essential. Someone before people, worship leaders, minister, those are essential, like those are essential workers. Now, I think it's different when you see a call in your like Samuel, in the Bible, Samuel was dedicated to the Lord. He was in the house, he was learning from the priest. Like that's different. But if you're just letting them and not discipling them, it's gonna render ineffective in the spirit. It might be nice, you might have a nice crowd, but you have to ask yourself, do you want to be effective or seen? You might be content with seen. Your ministry will be ineffective.
Mm.
It
Ooh-wee.
reminds me of the sons of Sceza. Oh,
Ooh-wee.
come out in the name of the God Paul talks about. Come out. And the enemy was like, Paul, I know. Jesus, I know. Who are you? There was no discipleship, there was no connection. So not having them connected really hinders your ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the individual, you might get yourself in a fight that you can't get yourself out of.
What you say?
I can't go and pretend to be a police officer. I might render myself in danger that I may or may not be able to get myself out of. You
My
can't
God.
play a role because with certain roles come authority. So if you
Mm.
don't have the discipleship, which would mean you don't have the authority because you don't know, you don't have no rank in the spirit. I'm
What?
sorry,
Say that. Say that again.
then you don't
Say.
have no rank in the spirit. You're
Listen.
so ineffective to me.
That's so, man. Okay, you're not gonna do this to me tonight. I'm gonna stay focused. I'm gonna stay focused. Okay, no, that's powerful, and that is vital to know. I mean, I know some people probably have just, they're like whatever, they're just doing their own thing, but and then at that point, like, you've lost focus. You didn't keep the main thing, right? I like to put it like this, people use, the name of Jesus, but they're not building anything in regards to his church. They're building their own
Mhm,
church. They're
mhm,
doing their own thing. And just we sometimes say things like, every good thing is not a God thing. So it doesn't mean that you won't
mhm,
be producing some things, right? There may be some things that are produced, but you're telling the people that it's God, that this fruit is, of the kingdom, but it's really not. And I think that that's something that also deceives a lot of people. Like, when you know the word, I like to at least say it like this. Um, the enemy, he was trying to see what Jesus didn't know, right? When he tried to tempt him, right? So he
mhm,
comes to us and he tries to see, what we don't know. So if you don't know, the word, right? If you don't know what the Father sounds like, there are a lot of
mhm,
things that you can be looking at, you could hear, and it sounds so good that it sounds
mhm,
like it's the right thing. It sounds like the sound word of God. But when
Mhm.
you know. But when you
Mhm.
don't, you accept it, right? But yeah, yeah, there's a lot going on with that. But
Oh,
anywho,
yeah.
I hope you all are paying attention to what she's sharing because we need to know this. Identity. Identity.
Mm.
So tonight, music, ministry, and identity. Let's touch on this identity piece a little bit here. How important is it for us as a people to know our identity, our true identity? How important is it?
It's essential. It is paramount. We just did the series in Bible study about being made in the image of God from Genesis 1:26 and 27. One of the things that stuck out to me is, first of all, we were the only thing that God made with his hands, right? Because it said God spoke and there was. God spoke, let there be. There was like God spoke in the seas but he made us. And what that means is I'm important and I'm special enough for God. Like when you touch something, that's why criminals like to wear gloves because it's going to leave their DNA. God touched us so we would have his DNA because we were made in the likeness, in his image and likeness. And so, what that says to me, he also put breath, right? So, in our study, we talked about images and idols and how it's Psalms, I think 135. It talks about like all these images don't have life because they don't have breath and they're made by man, right? So what that says to me is I'm created in the image and likeness of God with the capacity to live. Now, how does that connect with identity? Sometimes life challenges our will to live. I've spoken to so many people in the last month that were like, I don't want to kill myself, but I also don't want to live if this is what life is like. And so I had said, I prophesy to you, you were created to live. I need you to say that, right? So it's important to know your identity so that when things come to challenge your identity, you can stand on it, especially if people of color. Our identity, it seems, it's like weaponized in a sense, right? We're Black, so certain people feel threatened or challenged. It's really hard. I spoke on the panel last week and we talked about identity a little bit. And as a Black woman in places of higher leadership, especially when I was in nonprofit, I was the number two at organizations. People were threatened by that. So how do I move in those spaces? I just have to be confident in who I am. In order for me to be confident in who I am, I got to know whose I am and how he made me. What's my purpose? He made me to live. I have the capacity to live and I have the ability to live. So I have the purpose to live.
My God, that's powerful. Okay,
To
let's
God be the
dig into
glory.
that just a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, so something comes to mind. Process, right?
Mm,
There's a time when, for example, a person may have operated in fear, right? And they no longer operate in fear, right? But let's just say um, someone who recognizes that about themselves goes to a minister. Um, and they say to that minister, hey, I know that God has called me to do some amazing things, but I am operating in fear. I recognize that there's some fear here, right? But I want to get past that. I don't want that to be an issue for my life. And then that minister begins to say, well, you need to get it together because, in the kingdom, we don't operate in fear. God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, but a power of love, and just wow, 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 wow. And that person is like, whoa, right? Because,
mhm,
and I've witnessed this actual example I'm giving, I've witnessed this over and over again, right? where this person, number one, is like vulnerable. They're
Mhm.
telling you like, look, I want to do what God is calling me to do. I recognize that there's some fear here, and then that person just begins to slap them in the face with scripture, rather than saying, wow, this is beautiful. This person,
Mm.
just admitted that, they're dealing with some fear, right? And that's the truth, right? That they're not going to that person and lying like, I'm all good, I'm confident in this thing,
Mhm.
when they're really dealing with fear, right? The truth is essential, right?
Mhm.
And so this person is dealing with some fear. They share that with the minister. The minister starts slapping them in the head, with scripture. And for when a situation like that, what advice would you give to ministers who have now accumulated for themselves a lot of the word? They know it from the front to the back, back to the front. They done been to seminary. They the deepest theologian in the world, etc. But they slap people across the head with scripture rather than engaging in a healthy way. What advice would you give to those individuals that have gotten away? Now maybe they started out with listening
Mhm.
and really handling a person the way that God would want us to, but then they got away from that because they've been in ministry for so long. What would you say to that individual?
Oh, I have a lot to say. The first thing that I just hear in my spirit is, "With loving kindness have I drawn thee."
There we
Who are
go.
you drawing? Especially if someone's talking about fear, that is vulnerability. That's like my word for the season. But um, perfect love, that's the opposite. The opposite of fear is in courage, according to the word. Perfect love cast off that fear. So love them through it. That's what a lot of times, like, um you, if I mentor, or I'm like, yo, I gotta love you through it. I might not like it, but I gotta love you through it. That's one. Two, remember where you started. Like, I've been to seminary, I got a master's degree, I've done all that. um but you gotta be relevant, especially with this generation. The church is not relevant, to be honest, with not in general, with this generation, because they don't feel that that is relevant. You have to make faith relevant and practical for anybody. And so how like, how is what I'm saying right now gonna relate to the person I'm trying to receive? Because if I'm giving something, they gotta receive it. Like, how am I presenting something to a person? Like Paul said, I became all things to all men. Like Jesus, when he spoke to certain groups of people, he spoke in their terms. He used their if he talked to farmers, he used the seeds and the planting. When he was talking to Peter, he talked about fishing. Like, he was relevant. He made the gospel relevant. I always love this quote. Francis Assisi, I think, said it. Preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. How can I show you? How can I live this so you can see that you can do it? It's not like, no one, I think Maya Angelou said, like, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that resonates for me. You can preach to me all day, but if I don't feel like you care, it's not coming from a place of love, it may go over my head. And I have a degree in seminary. Like, so let alone someone who's not as strong in the faith, they got to know you care.
Wow. They have to know you care.
They have to
That right
know.
there, that okay. So Kingdom Impact Nation.
Mhm.
Listen, I want you all to remember that. Retain that. Okay. You don't want to let that go. Kingdom Impact Nation, right? So I just kind of I slid in there, right? Because we're on this the part of the segment where we're talking about ministry, and she is a minister of the gospel. And since we are right here, can you share with everyone a little bit about uh, Kingdom Impact Nation, and how you got started, and some of the things that you are doing in Kingdom Impact Nation?
Sure. The Lord beat me into full submission. That's how it started. It was not by my choice, even though it is my heart, and I don't regret it. Um, I met a young lady this past summer who God connected me with deeply. That's my daughter, right? So, long story short, I was ministering to her and all this stuff, um, based upon the leading of the Lord, and she's like, "Are you a pastor?" And I'm like, "Don't cuss at me." "No, I'm not, thank you." "Mm." I'm like, "That is just not my heart." I'm rambling on and on, and she says, "It might not be in your heart or your desire, but is it written?" Drop the mic. So long story short, that was early. So a couple months later, my best friend was ministering to me. She was like, "God is, it wasn't, just a coincidence. You were ordained, this summer, like you needed to, God is setting you up in position." She's just giving me the word. And I'm like, I feel like it's God. He's interrupting my sleep, my appetite, all that. Okay. So I was like, you know what? Let me call my pastor. Let me call my bishop. Before I could call him, he texted me less than 24 hours after I received that word. It was a Friday. He texted me that Saturday morning. He's like, I need to talk to you about some ministry stuff. So I ended up getting on a call with him. Long story short, by the end of the call, he said verbatim what she said the day before, which coincided with, everything was just lining up. So I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I hear you. And so they both said, God said, launch this ministry immediately. Do not wait. It needs to launch next month because there are people assigned to your hands. And so back in February, my brother that I told you about passed away. And so the day after he passed, I went to a lunch for dinner for one of my friend's birthday. And these two young ladies I have never met, never seen, and actually haven't seen since, just gave me the word of God. And one of the things they said was, God is sending people because you've been faithful to serve you, and you're going to lead them. Everything this whole year has been kind of just coincided, even though this has been the roughest year of life for me. So long story short, after my bishop, my friend had said that, I was like, yes, God. I gave God a yes. When I tell you I cried in grief
I'm sure.
because I had to die to my will. This is not what I will. I felt like Jesus in Gethsemane. I'm surprised I started sweating blood. Not my will. This
Crazy.
was not my will. So I surrendered in that moment. And so
Yeah.
I followed up with my pastor. He was like, pray for the name. So I'm praying. And God said, you have to show the kingdom. I said, okay. And then God just started asking me a series of questions. He was like, like, how do you see this ministry? And I was like, it has to make an impact on this generation. He said, okay. And you're going to raise up a nation. So God just gave it to me in parts. I was driving. So Kingdom Impact Nation, that's how it was birthed. And there's some
Oh, I like how
founding
that came
people.
together.
Yeah, we was just having a conversation. And he was like, you are going to invade, influence, and impact. That's the mission. We're going to invade whatever sphere of influence. It doesn't have to be the church. You may go on tour. You may be a banker. You may be a manager, right? You may be a stewardess. Wherever you are, God is sending this generation in particular out to influence all sectors of life for his kingdom, to influence, therefore there's an impact.
that's
So that's
powerful.
how it came up. And there was just so much confirmation, when I spoke to my daughter, when I spoke to my friends, everything just came in alignment.
Oh,
And God was saying kind of similar things to them. They're like my founding people, and it just kind of came together. Um, so now, the way God has given it to me is to have a weekly Bible study via Zoom.
mhm.
And I just pray about, like, God, what do your people need to hear? So we've done a couple different series. And then we have monthly gatherings twice a month on campus. And God was like, go to where they are. And like, there's been testimonies of like, I came here heavy and I'm not heavy anymore. There's been several individuals who've given their lives to the Lord. So we do that. They're just worship and prayer gatherings. And we show up, no agenda. Even if we rehearse songs, like we've never gone through a whole set. We've never gone through a whole set yet. We show up. The first thing we do, the first movement, I call it, is we invite the Holy Spirit. And then wherever he takes us, that's where we go. And it's been very powerful, very powerful.
Wow. Wow. I love it because, the
Thank
way
you.
you explain how everything came together, then you know it's God, right?
Mhm.
And that's what's most important about it. And I've had an opportunity to participate in some of the amazing Bible studies that you've been hosting on the
Thank
Zooms.
you.
I have not made it in person yet, but I'm coming. Okay, I I
I'm gonna
will
hold
be
you
there.
to it.
I'm coming. Listen, I've seen a few clips online, and it really looks like you all are having an amazing time in God. So I will
Mhm.
definitely be showing up. Let me ask you this. When you said yes, you just explained to us, what that moment was like when you just, decided, hey, I know that I'm supposed to do this. I'm moving forward. How long was it um, between that time and you actually starting slash hosting your Bible studies?
3 weeks.
Okay, not long at all.
Maybe. Yeah, because when I know it's God, I don't drag my feet. So I knew it was God. And even though I wanted to deny it, I couldn't deny it. The simple fact that both of those individuals gave me the verbatim same word, and I know they don't talk to each other. I didn't want to admit, but it was agreeing with my spirit. It was almost like a leap. Like, when Mary and Elizabeth met, their wombs leapt, so it was kind of like the word of the Lord made my spiritual womb leap. But I didn't want to admit that. Um, so I did, like, I was like, okay, so I just went into a season of consecration and prayed about strategy, prayed, the name, everything. How should I set it up, God? And I've even since then have had to pivot a little bit. But um, yeah, a matter of weeks. And it was interesting because my bishop, well, both of them actually said, like, you have the group, they're just around you. You just have to provide the platform and God will send them. So our first gathering, I mean, yeah, everybody, because I was distraught. I was crying. I was like, I can't do this. I was freaking out. Even the first Bible study, I freaked out. The enemy was just acting up. So even our first gathering, I'm like, who's going to do this? And literally, all I had to do was show up. Full band, full team, almost 30 people present.
Look at
It's
God.
been God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm telling you, when I've looked at some of the clips online, I'm like, I got to get there. Okay. What's on my schedule on Saturdays? We're gonna have to move some things around. So if
Mm.
people, for those that are listening in, right, that may be here in Massachusetts, the Boston area, or the surrounding areas, and they may be interested in coming to fellowship with you all in person, how could they make that happen?
I would say follow our social media. I've
Mhm.
gotten better. My team has definitely challenged me. I call them my executive board. Shout out to Ash and Tay. So we post, the dates. It'll get a little bit easier at the beginning of the year because of the holidays. It's like, is it this week? Is it so? We're going on spring break. Yeah, not spring break. Break this week. So as opposed to us normally, it would normally be this Saturday. We had to pivot, but I would say follow our social media for sure. Um, and that like we always post when they're gonna happen, and then as of next year they will be on a consistent schedule.
Okay. Awesome, awesome. Listen, you all don't want to miss out, okay? God is using this woman of God in a major way, and I'm excited about it. Okay, so I am at this point in our segment, I'm going to actually go back to some things in regards to music.
Okay.
Here's a question for you. If you had an opportunity to work with an artist who is no
Mm.
longer with us, they have passed on, right? They're no longer with us. Who would that artist
Oh.
be? 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, like go for it. Whatever
Hmm.
era that
This
comes
is
to
the craziest answer. The first person that comes to mind is Tupac.
mind. Really? Okay. All right.
I love even as a kid, I loved his cadence,
Yes.
and his poet, like the poetry that he brought to hip hop and rap.
Mhm. That's what's up.
I
What's
That's
up?
my first. Yeah, that's the first thing, the person that comes to mind,
Okay,
which is
okay.
so awkward and weird, but yeah,
But it's
I just
not.
love because I used to love poetry, so I loved how his metaphors, simile, like his
Yeah,
the rose that grew from concrete, like yeah, I
that's
just
what's
loved it.
I'm
Hmm.
with it. I'm with it because I'm a poet myself. So
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
you know what? Speaking of which, let me just go on ahead real quick and let me
go
just
right
grab
ahead.
this. Speaking of poetry, you might not be able to see it as clearly as I would like for you to see it, but this is my book, right? God
Yep.
is a poet, poetic prophecies, revelation, and exaltation. You can go ahead and grab that over on Amazon, but I just tossed that in there because she brought up poetry, right? And I love all
Hmm.
things poetry. Okay, Tupac. Okay, one more. Someone who
One
has
more.
passed on that you would absolutely love to work with.
Probably Prince.
Oh, she went for Prince.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo.
cause some of my mentors come out of his camp.
I
So
can
like
see that
Sheila
though.
E.,
Yeah,
John Blackwell, I've played with
that's
his band just
mm,
because he's an all-around musician, was an all-around musician. I
yeah.
would have just learned like to learn, and he was like a perfectionist. They've told me like he was almost ruthless.
Ooh.
So just learning that perfection to get like such a high caliber of music, I would have loved to just sit and study.
I could see that. I could
Mhm.
see that working. I could see the both of you all. I would be in the front row. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd show up for that. I'd be early. I'd be early. Okay. So at this point of our segment, we are going to move into what I like to call it's a little activity called first
Okay.
things. You already laughing.
I'm nervous. Okay. All right. Here we go.
Don't be
All right.
nervous. Don't be nervous. Okay. First things. Okay. Your first car. Do you remember your first car?
Yes. It was a trash can on wheels. It
What?
was a 2000, no, I don't even think it was 2000. It was like a 97 Chevy Blazer,
Mhm.
and it fell apart literally. The bumper fell off at church. I was driving on the highway on 95. I just started slide to the right. Like it literally just fell apart. I didn't even have it for a year. It was terrible.
No way. Well,
Yep, green. I'll
you
never forget
remembered
it.
that far back.
Yep. I remember
Wow,
what it looked
okay.
like, what it smelled like. Oh yeah,
Y'all got history. You got
terrible.
history.
Yes, traumatic.
Okay.
Trauma. We got trauma.
Your first love.
Ooh. What do you want me to say about this?
Whatever comes to mind. Your
My
first,
first love
was it in high
taught me
school,
how to
middle
love.
school? Okay, taught you how to love. High school, middle school, young adult, around what period?
I would say early high school.
Okay.
I'm trying to get our ages right. The high school,
Okay. Okay. High school, first love. And you said he taught you how to love?
how to love,
How to
how to
love.
love people, how to show people love, and how to love myself.
Mm,
Absolutely.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
All right. Your first time witnessing to someone, and how did that go? Your first time witnessing, your
Whew.
first witnessing experience.
That's hard because I grew up in church, so I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I feel like,
Do you remember, like, just how, as early as you can remember, maybe not the first person?
yeah, I remember in elementary school because all of my friends knew I went to church, but it was like cool, like, oh, you play drums in church. And like one of my friends actually was just going through some things at home. And I was just like, you should come to church with me. Like, I don't even know what I said. Like, I just probably just was trying to encourage her. But I do remember a moment. I feel like we were young because she was like my first best friend, like from kindergarten. And she was going through, and I remember saying, like, God can help you. Like, you could pray and it'll get better. Like, things like that. And we were kids. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, this one, it doesn't necessarily have to be a first. I'm gonna put it out there, and then you can respond by way of like whatever comes to mind when you hear this. Okay, you ready?
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah.
Said no. I'll never do that again. Dot dot dot. I'll never do that again.
Let me do that again.
I'll never do that again.
Oh, I'll I'll never I'll try to never not be vulnerable again because it has
Mhm.
cost me some relationships and I'm seeing the fruit of that now.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of our first things activity. Um,
Okay.
share with us before we, come to our close. We're about to wrap up, and this has been awesome, super awesome. Um, what is a funny annoyance or a pet peeve of you?
Hearing people chew, I have to deep breathe. Oh my gosh. Hearing people chew, I literally have to
Yeah.
I go into a deep breathing moment.
My husband gets annoyed by that too. Now, can you hear people when they're chewing and their mouth is closed? Like, can you hear through their head?
Some people, yeah. One of my friends, she gonna get me. I won't say her name. I'm like, you're chewing so loud. She's like, I'm not sure. And I'm like, well, I could still hear it. And she's like,
That
well, I
is
don't know what to
funny.
tell you. Yeah. But not
That is
everyone,
funny.
but some people, or just like the, oh, no.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
that could be a bit much. Any other pet peeves? Just something you're like, "L listen."
Mm. It's so funny because if you ask my friends, I'm pretty sure they'll have a whole list.
I'm sure.
Um, I don't like feet.
You don't like f what is wait a minute, what does that even mean?
Like, I
Pig
don't know.
feet?
Like,
Chicken
don't
feet?
put your feet
Chicken
on me. Like, I don't know. It's just weird. I just don't put your
Yeah.
feet on me. Like, I don't know.
She's
And
like,
I
"I
don't even
don't."
have ugly feet. It's just, especially don't
Well
let your feet be ugly. Oh my gosh.
well,
I
you
freak
you
out a
all
little bit.
heard it here, okay? Keep your dogs away from
At bay.
away from her, 'cause it sounds like it's gonna be a whole problem,
Oh.
and you
Oh
can't
no,
say
here's
to
another one. I should have said this one.
uh-huh. Go
I don't
ahead,
like
go
my
ahead.
food touching.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it has to, I don't like it touching.
Got you. So I'm kinda like I'm there with you. I don't make a big deal about it, but like my husband, he will get 2 whole different plates and
Mm-hmm.
he will do what he needs to do to make sure just nothing just it's not gonna touch. It's not
Yeah,
gonna
that's
touch.
me.
Yeah, and I be looking at him like, "Really? You just gonna waste those 2 other plates?" For him, it's like, I'm not wasting anything. This how I do what I do, okay? This how I keep my
Yeah.
food separate. That is
Yes.
funny. Oh my god, this has been awesome. You all, we
It
are
has.
getting ready to wrap up for tonight, but oh my god, such an amazing person you are. I am
Thank
glad
you.
that the world is getting to know you and getting to know you more. Is there anything that you would want to share with our viewers before we head out, whether that has to do with music, ministry, identity? What would you leave the viewers with?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is a little bit of what we talked about with identity. We have all been made in the image and likeness of God Himself, with Himself as the blueprint. And He gave us His breath. When He made mankind, He breathed upon man and they became a living soul. So, what that says to me is that despite what life looks like, despite what comes our way, we were created with the purpose to live. No other idol, no other creation has breath, but God gave us His breath. So you were created with the strict intent and purpose to live.
I love it. I love it. Anyone you want to shout out, give a thank you to, say what up, what up, what up. I mean,
Yes, my child 20. That's my right hand right there. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the push. Thank you for being you. Um, Tay, I think Tay's on the line. Um, Thank you for your support. My friend, thank you. You know who you are. And everyone connected to Kingdom Impact Nation. I love y'all. Thank you for trusting the God in me and my
oh,
family. I don't know who's on, but thank y'all. Um, just thank everybody. Thank everyone who has been a supporter, whether presence or prayers. Thank you.
oh, that's beautiful. Listen, you all take care of this wonderful human being, okay? Because
They do a good job. They do a good job.
she is rare, okay? She is rare. She is loved. And let me tell you, come close, friend, if you watching. Uh-huh. Friend. I don't know you just yet, but I'm gonna get a chance to meet you. Friend. Listen,
Ooh,
it's good to
Jesus.
laugh. You all continue to love and, let the light of God shine through you. Ayeisha, thank you so much for coming on. This has
Thank you
been
for having
amazing.
me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I know that you are a busy woman, and I just appreciate you taking the time to come and just, share who you are, and just all of the amazing things that you have going on with our viewers. And thank you. A shout out to all of her friends and family and associates that are tuning in, even those that may tune in on the replay. We love you all very much. Make sure that you stay positive and bless somebody, right? Let's be
Mhm.
selfless, not selfish, right? So again, you have tuned into the platform, and we are out for tonight. Thank you once again, Miss Mathis. You are
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.